Do not go into business, do not go into real estate investing if your intention is to try and get illegally creative. Hey everybody, your cash flow king here, Matthew with VIP Financial Ed. Welcome back to the channel. It's official, a fourth idiot has been arrested and charged with fraud, running an Airbnb out of a property that is not his primary residence. This is the fourth arrest in the Denver area. And I think that there's a lot to take away from this article that I want to make sure that we cover here on the channel. Now, behind me, you can see that I'm sitting in front of a short-term rental that we picked up back in March. We've been featuring this specific property here on the channel in a number of different videos because this property produces for us thousands in cash flow every single month. And myself, my fiance, and our pup Dolce here all get to enjoy the property regularly as well. So we're always out here making improvements and considering how the guests' experience can be even better. And it's almost like a vacation home of sorts, but it pays very well. And that's why we call it a lifestyle asset. And so anytime an article like this hits the presses, it piques my interest. I'm always going to be thinking to myself, well, what happened here? And am I doing something wrong myself? And so let's go ahead and talk about this. This guy, Spencer Chase, he's the owner of a local business in Denver called Chase Custom Homes. And he was charged in July with one count of attempting to influence a public officer. And it basically boiled down to him making a false statement. Now, here's how it works, folks. Back in 2016, Denver changed their ordinance that you were only able to rent out a primary residence through sites like Airbnb and VRBO. You had to be living in the property. Now, according to this article, there was an employee that worked for Chase that sent an email to Denver's Department of Excise and Licenses that claimed that Spencer owned 12 rental homes under his company, and it was asking if Chase was actually allowed to rent out this specific property because for several months he didn't live there. Now, this obviously sparked officials to start investigating this. They went to neighbors of the home and they determined that this property was a rental, that he didn't actually live there and he resided somewhere else. And here's the bottom line, that you have to submit an application for short-term rentals. And anytime they are suspicious that a property is not a primary residence, they then force the owner to sign an affidavit, have it notarized, stating that they are actually living in the home. Well, Chase signed and notarized this affidavit and returned it. And as it turns out, they were able to confirm that he has not been living in the property. So of course he's in trouble and even faces jail time because of this behavior. So two takeaways that I want you guys to consider from this article and today's video. Number one, ordinances can change at any time. You have very little, if any, control over regulations that might restrict you on things like this short-term rental here behind me. If the city of Buena Vista or Chaffee County suddenly required a different process in licensing that forced this to be a primary residence, then obviously we would be having to change our behavior. And the numbers that we were speculating in advance of making this acquisition and this investment would be changing. So it's very important ahead of time to be contemplating what both best case and worst case scenarios look like. Now, as it turns out, we made an investment into this property for ourselves and ourselves only. It wasn't until we started to research what the potential was with this property under a best case scenario, using it as a short-term rental, that we started to reconsider maybe it does make sense for us to rent this out when we're unable to use it ourselves. And we've done very, very well with that. But if I were looking at this ahead of time, I would have had to say to myself, and did, will this property actually cash flow if in the event that we're unable to live in it and it's unable to be used as a short-term rental the way we want it to be, we have to put in a long-term tenant. And if that's true, will it still produce for us a positive net cash flow position? And in this case, it does, to the tune of about $600 each and every month. So very, very important for you to be thinking ahead of time in case you end up with a long-term rental by accident when your initial intention was a short-term rental. Okay, so always contemplate and have a backup plan for what worst case scenarios look like, not just with short-term rentals, but in each financial decision that you're making. The second takeaway to this is don't commit frickin' fraud. If you want to be successful and you want to be sustainably successful, it is extremely important that you accept and play by the rules. I remember back in 2000 or 2001 when I was brand new in the mortgage business, I had a friend from grade school up through high school that I hadn't spoken with in a couple of years find out I was in the mortgage business and approach me for a loan, saying, I want to get an owner-occupied loan on this property, an FHA loan, which required very little money down, and it also gave the best interest rate so that he could then turn around, pretend he was living in it, and then rent it out. I immediately said, no, this is not compatible with my morals and values, and I plan on running businesses with the highest level of integrity. And if you're not planning on operating with the highest level of integrity, my suggestion would be not to run your own businesses and to simply work for someone else. Follow the rules under somebody else's day-to-day game plan, and when they delegate to you, just follow instructions. But do not go into business, do not go into real estate investing if your intention is to try and get illegally creative. So guys, I hope this is good food for thought, a reason why it makes sense for us to always be on the up and up, and we can learn from idiots like this guy and remind ourselves that it's just simply not worth it to make a buck. Yes, you might get away with it once, you might get away with it twice, but it is not sustainable for you to continue to just try to dodge the rules and live in that gray space. So always do things on the up and up. Make sure you're always considering worst case scenario. And of course, drop a like and become a subscriber to the channel for as much great information related to credit, accessing capital, and growing your cash flow. Because guys, we're killing it. I mean, we've accessed somewhere in the ballpark of $650,000 in new capital in just the last 60 days for me personally that I can use for absolutely any reason whatsoever, whether I want to grow my businesses, whether I want to invest in real estate, whether I need it for emergency's sake, whether I want to attack and eliminate debts. All of it is available for my own personal discretion. It's liquid, same as cash, capital, and guys, that's how leverage really works. So if you want to take Robert Kiyosaki's messaging and put it on steroids, make sure that you tune into this channel regularly. And of course, if you haven't done so already, claim your one free coaching session by clicking the link in the description below, freecoachingcalendar.com. And I'll go ahead and throw a link to this article down there below as well if you want to read through and get the extra details. Until we see you on the next video, Dolce and I hope you have a great day. Take care.